I would say overall something that I notice is that perspective is really important for youth. You know, today we are all expected to put ourselves out there, to really engage in things, to take projects on, to start entrepreneurships, like all of these things that 20, 30 years ago did not happen. People in the university back then would just get their master degree or bachelor degree or whatever and start to work. Today that's no longer the case. I think if you don't have the drive, if you don't take on engagements yourself, it's hard to get a perspective. It's hard to get grip on a job or one of these things. So I think perspective is necessary today in youth, and locally, in the university. When we talk more internationally also, I mean, today the Erasmus on a European level is so important, and it will be, I think, in the next term, everyone has the ambition to double it, the investment. So that is one of those things that you need to have the drive and take on engagement if you want to really have a future perspective. So yeah, I think that's for the European case, and locally it's about the same, I would say. I would say it's both. When there are no opportunities, when there are no real kind sense of job where you can work towards, that's a problem. That's like we as youth cannot create one another's opportunity. We need some kind of setting, and it's that setting that needs to be created by the government. But I also think that when you want to make a difference as being a young person in a university, it's drive that will get you there. We can, like, of course, grades are important, and really doing a good job at school is really important, but in the end that makes the last difference between you and someone else is having that drive, is wanting to be out there and searching for opportunities. So I think we need to meet in the middle. Of course, when there are no opportunities given, there's no chance, but also personal drive, it makes a difference. Of course, we are in Indonesia. We have a whole different context. They have a big young population, growing each day. Um, by they will have by 2050 they will have the fourth biggest population in the world, which is huge. So if those young people don't get the right opportunities, are not given the right setting and where they can show that they have the talent, then Indonesia will have a main problem. And the government right now, like the ambassador Tamarin also said last week in the debate that was organized, they are taking this seriously. They know that they will need to give the opportunities. They know that their youth is a potential, but needs to be used in a right way. Otherwise, you will lose a whole generation. Is there a big chance of losing a whole generation? I don't think so. Of course, there will come problems with it, but I think it's more of a potential than an issue. That is a hard question. Um, you know, I'm doing research about free trade agreements, and when you look at free trade agreements, Europe is always negotiating very comprehensive, big free trade agreements, going over 1,000 pages. Within ASEAN, when the member states of ASEAN are negotiating about free trade agreements or free trade agreements with China, for example, they they consist of 100 pages, not very comprehensive, big free trade agreements, but just a basis on where the future relationship can grow on. Um, should we also do that? No, that I'm not saying that, but it is important to see this, to take this into account. You can't force a member state of ASEAN into a big comprehensive agreement if they cannot comply on it, if they cannot implement it. You should think about this. The ASEAN way of doing things is starting with something small and then we build on to that and we are friends. This shows our friendship and we'll see in the future what we will do with it. It's an important thing to see that. I'm not saying you need to do it as well, but you need to have the kind of, you need to work with that, I would say. They were talking at one point about integration in ASEAN, and I think and some interesting things have been said. You know, often when we look at ASEAN, people try to compare it to the European Union, see it as something supranational. It was made very clear that ASEAN is not something like this. Will never, in their sense, it's also not the objective to be like that. It's more an intergovernmental kind of setting, which has its own identity issues. You know, Ambassador De Vega at one point he said, in this room we now have two ambassadors, one counselor. I am a Christian, he said. Ambassador De Vega is from the Philippines. We have a Muslim, Ambassador Tamrin, and there's one Buddhist, a counselor from Thailand. By saying that, he made a very striking point, I would say, because within the European Union, you don't see this kind of dialogue between the very different religions, something that is very vibrant in ASEAN. And of course they don't have the integration as we have, but he was right about one thing, and that is that they see one another as brothers. And I think that kind of integration is really important for ASEAN, and that's why we also should not make the mistake to compare it to the European Union. I think that was one of the most interesting things in the debate being said.